Simplicity is a lot like slowing. It's a cousin spiritual discipline. Simplicity is also so important for our culture. In Luke 16, Jesus says, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." Simplicity is realizing just what a hold money, materialism, stuff has on us, what a hold it has on our hearts. Simplicity is an intentional move to push away the power that money and materialism has in our lives. In Luke 12, Jesus says, "Sell your possessions." That's one way to do it. "And give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys." In other words, put your resources in heaven by giving them away here. 2 Peter 2:19, Peter says, "They promise them freedom while they themselves are slaves of depravity, for people are slaves to whatever has mastered them." In Western culture, materialism has mastered so many of us. It has such a hold on our hearts. Soren Kierkegaard, one of my favorite philosophers, said, "Purity of heart is to will one thing." Simplicity is to say, I want to love God, I want to serve God, I want to enjoy God, and I want to glorify God in everything that I do. And I want to make my home in heaven my number one goal. What tends to happen is we become duplicitous. We become double-minded. Yeah, I want to store up treasure in heaven, but I really want a nice winter house up here in the White Mountains as well. And if we're not careful, we allow things and gathering more things and having more things to kind of overtake our lives, where we're no longer storing up treasure in heaven. We're storing up treasure in heaven, but we're also storing up treasure on earth. Simplicity is, what if I just focused on the former? Storing up treasure in heaven. Richard Foster says, "Because we lack a divine center, our need for security has led us into an insane attachment to things." This is something that Buddhism and even Taoism can teach us a lot about, having this detachment to stuff. And there is value in that, because even as followers of Jesus who don't practice Buddhism, we sometimes become way too attached to material things. And this is distinct from asceticism. Asceticism is like being a monk or a nun and getting rid of, all external things, choosing not to own a home, only to wear one thing every day. Asceticism is complete extreme self-denial. We're not saying that you have to live like a monk or a hermit. We're just suggesting that maybe if you simplified your life more, you would enjoy God more. That's what we're suggesting. Simplicity is characterized by receiving every possession as a gift, letting God care for each one, and making them available to others. God, this is yours. Thank you for it. It doesn't belong to me, and I want to make it available for whoever needs it. Dustin and I are actually staying here with our wives in a cabin here in the White Mountains because of the generosity of some family who realize, I have a house in the White Mountains I don't stay at very often, and I want to make sure that it's available to pastors and others who need it when they need it, because it's not my cabin, it's God's cabin. That kind of attitude is what we're talking about when we talk about simplicity. Here's some practical ideas. Number one, buy things for their usefulness rather than their status. If you don't need a watch, but you have a watch because it looks really good with your pants, maybe you don't need that watch. Number two, reject whatever becomes addictive. For some of us, that's caffeine, television, Facebook, you know who you are, and cell phones. Those things can become an addiction. If they're an addiction, let them go. Number three, go without television and electronics for a week. If you don't think you can do it, then you definitely need to do it. Number four, give things away regularly. Just give them away. Limit yourself to a fixed number of items. There's a movement actually in this country, and it's not a Christian movement, of limiting yourself to 100 personal items. You can go on the internet and find articles about it. It's really fascinating. I'm not a part of that movement. I'm not suggesting that you become a part of that movement, but I think it's fascinating that some people said, wait, we got too much stuff. Number five, refuse to purchase the latest technology. You know, you have the iPhone 8. Do you need the iPhone 12? Do you really need it? Do you have to have it? Will your life be incomplete without it? I mean, so often we just get stuff because it's the newest one. It's better than the one we have. The one we have works fine. Do we really have to have a new one? Number 6, excuse me. Learn to enjoy things without owning them. You know, the neat thing about hiking is I can go to really awesome places and see beautiful sunsets and waterfalls, and I don't have to own that stuff. I don't own it. I'm just allowed to hike there, and I can still enjoy it. Can you enjoy things like I'm enjoying a weekend up here? I don't own this cabin. Can you enjoy something without owning it? Can you borrow something from someone else without having to go buy a new one for yourself? Can you enjoy things without owning them? Number 7, develop a deeper appreciation for God's creation. That's easy to do when you come out to a place like this and you're surrounded by nature and wildlife, and you realize, you know what? There's a beauty here that technology and modern advancements can't really touch. God has worked things to perfection, right? And so develop a deep appreciation for what God has created. And the number 8, live on cash. You know, my wife and I have learned to do that. It's something we've done going through Dave Ramsey's stuff, and it's been really helpful for us to realize, hey, we're not going to borrow money for anything. We don't have any credit cards. The only debt we have is our house. We simply refuse to borrow money. We want to live on cash. We want to live simply because we know that ultimately not living that way produces a lot more headaches than living that way. So I would encourage you to find a way to move toward a simpler life.